The next witness, as we said, is the victim's ex-husband. His name is Stephen Rocca. Let's go into the courtroom.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your full name, spelling your last name for the record?
Stephen Rocca, R-O-C-C-A.
How old are you?
56.
What's your date of birth?
7/16/1968.
Do you work?
Yes.
What do you do for work?
Self-employed carpenter.
How long have you been doing that?
Pretty much my whole life. Sam?
Are you currently married?
No.
Have you ever been married?
Yes.
To who?
Kathleen
And what's Kathleen's last name?
McLean.
When did you meet her?
I met her back in high school.
Did you have any children together?
Yes, 3.
What are their names?
Sophia.
And what's Sophia's date of birth?
Sophia's date of birth is 7/16/2002.
And your next child?
Mary Grace.
Does she go by Grace?
Yes.
And what's Grace's date of birth?
12/29/03. Birth is February 7th, 2007.
When did your marriage to Katie end?
2011.
Where did Katie live after your marriage ended?
With her mom.
What town was that in?
Waltham.
Where did your kids live at that time?
With her.
How often did you communicate with Katie after your marriage ended?
Daily.
How often would you see her?
Weekly.
And would that be to exchange the children?
Yes.
Turning to the beginning of 2020, where were Katie and your children living?
Tell me the date again, please.
The beginning of 2020.
I believe she was living in Sudbury.
At some point, did that change?
Yes.
Where did she move to?
I believe to Dover.
And who was living with her in Dover?
My 3 children, Harry's 2 children, and Harry.
And you say Harry, who do you mean?
Mr. Tuerk there?
And you see him in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you please identify him by an article of clothing that he's
Striped
wearing?
blue tie.
I'm sorry?
A striped blue tie.
Your Honor, could the record please reflect identification?
Yes.
When did you meet the defendant?
Probably 2002, 2020.
Would you communicate with him separately from Katie?
Never.
How often did you see him?
Maybe when I picked the children up. I hardly ever had any contact with him.
In February of 2020, were you aware that the defendant was no longer living in Dover with Katie and your children?
Yes.
How did you know that?
Katie told me.
Where was he living, if you know?
Not sure.
How often were you communicating with Katie at that point?
Daily.
And how would you most often communicate with Katie?
Text message.
Would you ever speak with her on the phone as well?
Times.
How often did you go to the house after the defendant left?
Once a week. Weekends.
After COVID hit in March of 2020, how often did you communicate with Katie?
Same, daily.
How often would you see the kids once the world shut down for COVID?
I didn't.
How long did you go without seeing your children?
Probably about 3 weeks.
Turning to April 17th of 2020, did Katie discuss the possibility of reconciling with the defendant with you?
Yes.
Did Katie text you an email from the defendant's attorney that you read?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yeah, let me just see counsel at sidebar.
Okay, judge wants to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of this email and what can be brought out from it. Krista Ramey watching along. This guy obviously very close to the situation because of the kids, and we'll find out what the email is overall. What's your impression of him so far?
He seems like close to the decedent, close to the family. Obviously, the father of her children. Someone who she was in contact regularly. He's going to have a lot of information about probably not only, his relationship with her and the kids, but also about her relationship with the defendant. So it's really going to probably put a bigger picture together for us in terms of that relationship and how volatile it was. And now we're going to learn a little bit about a reconciliation attempt. Probably was a motion in limine, I guess, about to what extent this email can come in, about the restraining order and about, the reconciliation and how it all fits together. So that's probably why the judge called up counsel to sidebar, just to make sure no one violated any orders.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's get a break. We'll come back. We'll find out what this email's all about. Together, stay with us. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Let's get back to the surgeon strangles wife murder trial for Ingolf Harry Tuerk. It's in Massachusetts, same courthouse in Dedham, where Karen Reed's trial is getting underway tomorrow. With jury selection, it is going to be hopping in that courthouse. In fact, the judge in this case has told jurors, pay no attention to the person behind the curtain. Don't watch the Karen Reed case. You focus on Harry Tuerk. He's said it a couple times. Prosecution says Tuerk confessed to murdering his wife, saying they got in a fight. They were drunk. He strangled her, then realized she was dead, so he dumped her body in a pond. That's probably the worst fact. Didn't call 911, dumped her in a pond. Sidebar's over. Let's go back in for more direct exam of the victim's ex-husband. They just talked about this email that he had received from his late ex, talking about her relationship with Harry.
You have to know the exact dates. I just want to make sure that it's understood that well prior to 2020, you knew that your children and Ms. McLean were living with her boyfriend, Harry.
Yes.
No. Yes.
Yes.
And you didn't see them during that period of time either, did you?
Objection.
Sustained in that form.
Can I approach that, Bill?
Sustained in the form.
All right, I'll try another one. When Harry had his house that your ex-wife was living in with your 3 children, for that period of time, 2019 up until December of 19, you married, you had not visited with your children.
Yes, I have.
Sorry?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
Where
did.
you visit with them?
I went to their house and picked them up and brought them to my house.
Went to what house?
The house that she was living in Dover.
So and you weren't allowed in the house. You had to park out on the street.
I had a park in the street. Yes, sir.
All right, one second. Sustained. Rephrase it, please, and just wait for an objection.
Sorry.
Thank you. Can you ask the question again, Mr.
Sure.
Remington, please?
You had to park out on the street, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd park out on the street to pick up your kids. And would you agree with me, sir, that before the pandemic, shall we say, that you and Ms. McLean were not getting along? Isn't that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Would you suggest, sir, that you were angry because Ms. McLean was allowing Chris? She's objecting.
Objection.
All right, ask the question. Don't answer until there's an objection, sir.
Well, you were upset that she was allowing Chris Foley to stay in Harry's house, weren't you, during the pandemic?
Okay, that's sustained.
She didn't. Okay. So during this period of time, sir, during the pandemic, you would agree with me that you had issues, if you will, with Kathleen McLean, correct?
Objection.
The overall, just a yes or no.
that right?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, you had issues with Ms. McLean during that period of time that your children was living with Harry, right?
No.
Can you just
No?
specify the, Mr. Reddington, can you specify the dates, please?
The actual dates, okay?
The dates that you're
So-
referring to when you say period of time.
So in December of 19, they get married, right?
Yeah.
You knew they got married.
Yes.
She told you they got married, right?
Yes.
And you didn't like that, did you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you paying child support?
Yes.
Objection.
Sustained.
They approach Sidebar?
Yes.
All right, they went to side. We kind of we zoomed a little bit ahead there. We missed the direct after that other sidebar to get that email, so we're gonna figure that out. We'll go back. So, oh, they've queued it up. Okay, so let's go back. This is the direct. After that original sidebar talking about the email, that's where we're picking it up.
And what was the substance of that email?
She was saying he was saying that he wants to get back into the relationship and he's willing to go to.
I'm just going to stop you right there. So when you say he, who do you mean?
Harry.
Okay. And what's the date on that email?
So this is like triple level hearsay at this point. I'm objecting to
Is
it.
that an objection?
Yes, it is. I apologize.
All right, rephrase, sustained. Rephrase the question, please.
Okay. And could you just tell me what the date on that email is?
Friday, April 17th, 2020.
And that's an email that Katie sent to you. It's a screenshot, is that correct?
Screenshot, correct.
And after you read that email, did you receive another text message from Katie, or did you have a conversation with her regarding the substance of that email?
I don't remember.
Do you remember discussing the email with Katie?
Yes.
Do you remember discussing the reconciliation with Katie?
Yes.
And what were her feelings on reconciling with the defendant in April of 2020?
Objection.
Overruled.
Answer?
Yes, please.
She wanted to get back together so the children have a stable place to be in.
On May 8th of 2020, did the defendant return from Florida?
Yes.
What was your understanding of why he was coming back?
Objection.
Sustained in that phone.
How did he get back from Florida?
If he knows.
He drove.
Did you have any part in that?
Yes, I drove Katie to New York and dropped her off, and she drove back with him.
Who else was in the car when you drove Katie to New York?
My 3 children.
When you dropped Katie off in New York, did you see the defendant?
Yes.
And at that point, is it your understanding that Katie and the defendant continued to drive back to Massachusetts from New York?
Yes.
Where did he stay when he got back, if you know?
Don't know.
Prior to the defendant coming back to Massachusetts on May 8th of 2020, did you have any conversations with Katie regarding where the defendant would stay when he returned to Massachusetts?
Objection.
Overruled.
She asked me if he could stay at. I have a 2-family apartment. She asked me if he could stay there. I said it was rented and he couldn't.
Were there any other conversations you had about where the defendant could stay once he returned to Massachusetts in May of 2020?
Objection.
Overruled.
One of her possibilities was staying at her mother's condo in Belmont.
So Katie was actively looking.
That was empty.
That was empty. I'm sorry to interrupt. So Katie was actively looking for places for the defendant to stay.
Yes.
Turning your attention to May 15th of 2020, do you remember that day?
Say the date again, please.
May 15th of 2020?
Yes, I do.
What happened on that day?
I believe I got a phone call from one of her friends.
Do you remember that friend's name?
No, I don't.
As a result of that phone call, what did you do?
I called her phone several times. I called the children. And then I called that hotel that I received the name from that friend.
Okay. When you say that you called her cell phone several times, who do you mean?
Katie's cell phone.
Did you receive any answer?
No answer.
You stated that you contacted your children.
Yes.
Were you able to speak with them?
Yes, I did.
You also stated that you contacted the hotel.
Yes, I did.
Did you speak with somebody at the hotel?
Yes, I did.
After making all of those phone calls, what did you do?
I drove to that hotel.
What happened when you got to the hotel?
I saw an ambulance taking Harry out on a stretcher.
Then what did you do?
I drove to Dover to where my children were.
Did you enter the house?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go in the house?
Went into the kitchen and then up to the kids' rooms.
Who was in the house when you entered the house?
My 3 children.
Where were they located when you first went into the house, if you can remember?
I don't remember where they were. I yelled out to them and they came to me.
You stated that you went up to their bedrooms?
Yes.
Did you make any observations of the floor when you were in the house on May 15th of 2020?
Yes, I saw some black dots that were on the floor that looked weird.
Had you seen them before when you had been in the house?
Never.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 195 on the screen?
Mike.
Looking at Exhibit 195, can you please explain to the jurors what those are?
I don't know what they were. They were just black dots that were in a pattern on her wooden floor that was in the same pattern every so many inches or feet or wherever they were.
So when you say the same pattern, do you mean those
2 dots.
2 dots next to each other?
Yeah, then one a blank space, another 2 dots, a blank space, another 2 dots.
And where did you see these black dots?
Through the kitchen floor.
Anywhere else in the home?
If you go into the kitchen floor, their foyer, up to where the stairs were.
Did you see them in the upstairs hallway?
I didn't see them upstairs. I didn't remember seeing them upstairs.
So the first time you saw these black dots was on May 15th of 2020 when you entered the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And they continued as you were walking up the stairs to your children's bedrooms?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, victim's ex-husband on the stand talking about finding the kids, couldn't get a hold of his ex when she was passed. Thank goodness that he was in their life this whole time after divorcing many, many years ago from Kathleen. Let's bring in Krista Ramey. The cross is going to get very fiery. We know that we actually showed inadvertently a little of it earlier. He seems like a man that's been through a lot, but very, very clear with his answers. And what are you taking away from him?
You know, established what he needed to establish in the prosecution, didn't come across as someone who, you know, did anything but love his children and, you know, co-parented well with his ex-wife, you know, Kathleen, following their divorce, which is admirable, you know, and then, you know, this cross is coming in hot that we got the little preview of. And a lot of what is being asked of him is completely irrelevant. Whether or not he was ever angry about his new marriage or her new marriage, rather Kathleen's new marriage, is irrelevant. What does that have to do with anything? They're really trying to, the defense is going to try to attack him and, you know, chip away at his credibility. I don't know that there's going to be a lot to chip away from.
And I don't know what the upside to doing that is. You know, why do we care about this guy? He seems like a decent person. Why go away?
Exactly.
You know, I think they're going to try to chip away at her character through him, and he'll likely be unwilling to go too far with it.
Fair.
But we'll see. We'll have an encore presentation of the cross when we return. Stay with us. We're going to get a commercial break in here, and then surgeon strangles wife trial. Ingolf Harry Tuerk on trial in Massachusetts. We'll get you back into the courtroom next. Welcome back to Court TV Live. Back to Massachusetts now, where we've been following testimony in day 3 of the surgeon strangles his wife trial. Defendant Dr. Ingolf Harry Tuerk is accused of strangling his wife Kathleen to death in their home back in May of 2020, then dumping her body in a nearby pond. Tuerk's defense team has argued that McLean died during a drunken fight between the two over their relationship. Let's go back into the courtroom. We're watching testimony from someone who knows all about the relationship. It's the victim's ex-husband, Stephen Rocca, cross-examination.
So, Rocca, District Attorney asked you a question about Harry living somewhere, and you mentioned something about Belmont, right?
Excuse me?
You mentioned something about her empty place in Belmont.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And in fact, sir, you had exchanged text messages with her, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And she told you that Harry was coming back from Florida at the end of the week, back in May of 2020, right?
Yes, she did.
She indicated that he needed a place to quarantine for 2 weeks, right?
Yes, she did.
She indicated that she wanted him to go to her mom's empty place in Belmont, but my family's being hard about it, is what she told you, right?
Don't remember exactly what she said, but she was asking about staying there.
Okay, but her family was being hard about it. You know, she told you that much.
Yes.
Didn't want her to, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And she said, I don't understand why, because the place is empty, right?
Yes.
A couple of times said, I don't understand what the problem is. So when, like a timeline, did you get divorced from Miss McLean?
I got divorced in 2017.
Okay. And then she was remarried again, correct?
I believe so.
You believe so?
I'd never seen it. Yes.
There's a guy by the name of Chris Foley, right?
Yes.
Do you remember when she married Chris Foley?
No.
Did your 3 children live with her and Chris Foley?
Yes.
And how long were your children living with her and Chris Foley?
I don't know.
Was it more than a year?
Yes.
And then she got divorced from Chris Foley, correct?
Yes.
And she, to your observation, her state of mind was that she didn't get along very well with Chris Foley, correct?
Sustained.
So when was it? Because you told the jury that it was 2020 that you knew that she and her children were living with Harry, right? 2020, right?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. If I suggest to you, sir, that in fact it was 2017 that Harry and Miss McLean met online, and it was in March of 2018 that Kathleen and your 3 children moved into Harry's home. March of 2018. 2 years before you telling this jury you knew that he was taking care of them in his house.
The dates, I don't know.
Of course, it's understandable. So let me ask it like this. Do you recall that your 3 children, for a chunk of time, from March of 2018 until, let's say, December of 2019, were living in Dover, in Harry's house with Harry?
I don't know the exact dates she moved.
Understandable. And you don't have to know the exact dates. I just want to make sure that it's understood that well prior to 2020, you knew that your children and Miss McLean were living with her boyfriend, Harry.
Yes.
No. Yes.
Yes.
And you didn't see them during that period of time either, did you?
Objection.
Sustained in that form.
Can I approach that, Beth?
Sustained in the form.
All right, I'll try another one. When Harry had his house that your ex-wife was living in with your 3 children, for that period of time, 2019 up until December of 19, when you come back, you had not visited with your children.
Yes, I have.
Sorry?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Yes, I
where
did.
you visit with them?
I went to their house and picked them up and brought them to my house.
Went to what house?
The house that she was living in Dover.
So and you weren't allowed in the house. You had to park out on the street.
I had a park on the street. Yes, sir.
All right, one second. Sustained. Rephrase it, please, and just wait for an objection. Sir.
Sorry, sir.
Thank you. Can you ask the question again, Mr.
Sure.
Whittington, please?
You had to park out on the street, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd park out on the street to pick up your kids. And would you agree with me, sir, that before the pandemic, shall we say, that you and Ms. McLean were not getting along? Isn't that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Would you suggest, sir, that you were angry because Ms. McLean was allowing Chris? She's objecting.
Objection.
All right, ask the question. Don't answer until there's an objection, sir.
Well, you were upset that she was allowing Chris Foley to stay in Harry's house, weren't you, during the pandemic?
Okay, that's sustained.
She didn't. Okay. So during this period of time, sir, during the pandemic, you would agree with me that you had issues, if you will, with Kathleen McLean, correct?
Objection.
Overall, just a yes or no.
Is that right?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, you had issues with Ms. McLean during that period of time that your children was living with Harry, right?
No.
Can you just
No?
specify the, Mr. Reddington, can you specify the dates, please?
The actual dates, okay?
The dates that you're
So-
referring to when you say period of time.
So in December of 19, they get married, right?
Yeah.
You knew they got married.
Yes.
And she told you they get married, right?
Yes.
And you didn't like that, did you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you paying child support?
Yes.
Objection.
Sustained.
Can I approach Sidebar?
Yes.
All right, there was that exchange there. Again, they're going to Sidebar. We'll pick it up right after that's over. Krista Ramey, this, I still don't get the upside to badgering him, but what are your thoughts?
I'm with you. You run the real risk of pissing off a jury. And juries already don't really care for lawyers very much. And they are, just going to be naturally reluctant to a lot of what is happening. And you've got someone who has died, who's been attacked in a very vicious way, personal way, by being strangled and then dumped into a pond. They're going to have a lot of sympathy for Kathleen, for the kids, and for her ex-husband who now has to raise these children. So what is the benefit of attacking him when he had nothing to do with the murder? And you're not saying he did. It really, I don't see an upside at all.
Yeah, it is. It's bizarre, the technique here. Let's go back, pick it up after the Sidebar.
So you knew after they got married, you knew prior to the time they got married, that your children were living in that house with Ms. McLean and Harry Tuerk, right?
Yes.
Yes. And you knew that, for example, as counsel has already elicited or brought out, that your son Sam has certain issues that require IEPs in the school and things of that nature, right?
Yes.
A lot of intensive attention, correct?
Yes.
You never went to one meeting in the school at all regarding your son's condition, did you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you know, sir, that Harry would go to the meetings for your son?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever take your kid out in a car, your daughter, and teach her how to drive a car?
Objection.
Sustained.
You know that you did?
Objection.
Sustained.
How old were they at the time?
Sustained, sir.
Objection.
The objection's sustained. You don't answer that.
So, the police talk with you, and they, at some point, did they ask you for your phone so they could see if you had text messages with Kathleen McLean?
No, sir.
Did they ever even look at your phone?
No.
Now, you knew that in December of 2019 that Harry and Ms. McLean had gotten married, right? Or thereabouts.
Thereabouts, yes.
And they were married for about 4 months, 5 months, right?
I guess so.
And at some point they got divorced, right? Or they were in the process of trying to get divorced, right?
I guess so.
You guess so. During that period of time, sir, did you have occasion to go, when he's out of the house, you knew he was out of the house at some point, right?
Yes, I did.
You knew that he had, she got a restraining order against him and he had to leave his home in February 2020, right?
Yes.
Now, would you agree with me, sir, that your relationship was strained using that term? He's objecting.
Objection.
Ask the question. Ask the question. Wait one second.
Okay? That your relationship with Harry Tuerk as the husband of Ms. McLean was strained. Would you agree with that, sir?
Objection.
The objection is sustained.
Kathleen McLean called the police on you on a number of times.
Objection.
Sustained.
I want to approach the sidebar.
Sustained. So you are to disregard.
All right, boy, just going after this Stephen Rocca. Krista Ramey, Harry taught one of his kids to ride a bike. I mean, is this crazy? It's like, all right, this guy is a dad, and guess what? No one believes that a Dr. Harry Tuerk didn't have some good qualities, you know, and that's not why we're here.
Well, exactly. That's not why we're here. And doing this, like we were just talking about, there's no benefit to it. You're going to piss the judge off too, by the way, and the jury. And so right now, you've just got, your courtroom is going south on you. And once you lose credibility, it's hard for you to gain it back. And you're the spokesperson for this defendant who probably is never going to speak in front of this jury. They're never going to hear him talk, most likely. And so your credibility is everything, and attacking a witness where there is not a gain for it. And look, I think that we all are dogs with bones sometimes, and we feel like we're in battle, we're in the court, and the judge is not letting us do what we want to do. And so I've been there where I've probably gone sideways a little bit, but this is pretty bad. And I think that it's losing for him.